legit is due to the fact that I cannot say or claim that it's 100% legit since it was sent to me and therefore it could indeed be a legit outline, but it could also be nothing more than a fan fiction. However, why I say it seems legit is due to the fact that some major events of this outline have been confirmed by leaked photos and leaked informations. In case you haven't seen part 1 of this episode, I highly suggest you to do so and then come back to watch this video since first part included some huge events such as Cersei's death. Okay, the outline continues by stating that the Night King notices Jon and his Israelite forces. The Night King flies Viserion towards the living side, but before he could burn them, Dany and Drogon attack the Night King and Viserion. Rhaegal also finally appears and joins Dany and Drogon in an epic fight against the Night King and the undead Viserion. Fire does no damage to Viserion nor the Night King. In case you're wondering how come fire does no damage to Viserion when whites, who are basically corpses brought back to life by the Night King to act as his minions, do burn. In fact, fire alongside Dragonglass is the only way to kill a white. Well, that's because the Night King's dragon is not a white, which was confirmed by the show itself, as the official season 7 script states that Viserion is the Ice Dragon. It also points out that Viserion has been resurrected the same way Craster's sons were. This means that Viserion, just like the White Walkers, can only be killed by Dragonglass or by the Valyrian Steel. With that being said, let's back to the outline. It says that Sam asks Bran if he could warg into the Night King's dragon. Bran tries but can't. Bran manages to warg Rhaegal and burn big amount of whites, saving Jon and his Israelite forces from a huge horde. Bran then lands Rhaegal near Jon Snow, allowing Jon to mount and ride Rhaegal. Bran then wargs out of Rhaegal, allowing Jon to take full control of Rhaegal. Viserion wounds Drogon badly. Daenerys rides Drogon out of fight, landing at the Dragon Pit. Bran and Varys are at the Dragon Pit too. Jon starts burning a huge amount of the army of the dead across the capital. Melisandre shouts, "All hail the warrior of fire." Melisandre uses her healing abilities during the battle for King's Landing. Melisandre also raises the dead. The Night King lands near the Red Keep. Jon notices this and lands too. Let me stop right there to point out that this massive contraption on King's Landing set, whether this outline turns out to be legit or not, does confirm that at least one dragon will land at King's Landing at some point of the final season. And if this outline is to be believed, it will not be one but 3 dragons that will land at the capital. First to land is Rhaegal, worked by Bran and later controlled by Jon Snow. Jon Snow riding Rhaegal, the dragon named after his father, theory might finally come true. After the heartbreaking battle beyond the wall, Daenerys only has 2 dragons left, and since she rides Drogon, it would only fit for Jon, the other last living Targaryen, to ride Rhaegal into battle at some point. Beside Rhaegal, Drogon and Viserion will land at King's Landing as well. If some of you have been closely following how Game of Thrones series is being created, you'd know that if characters have to mount a dragon, part of its spine has to be physically recreated for the actors to mount it, which is exactly what this massive contraption on King's Landing set is, confirming that the dragons will indeed land in the capital. In the previous episodes, the Living already proclaimed Jon Snow a prince that was promised, also known as the Lord's Chosen, the Son of Fire and the Warrior of Light, which is how Melisandre hails to Jon Snow. It said that the prince that was promised will defeat the darkness with a flaming sword, so perhaps Jon truly is the prophesied savior and Rhaegal is his flaming sword. We'll soon find out if he is the one who ends the long night. Anyways, the Night King landed near the Red Keep, and so did Jon. The outline continues by stating that Daenerys sees Jon Snow following the Night King inside the Red Keep. Viserion and Rhaegal continue fighting above the Red Keep. Tyrion proposes Daenerys to fly wounded Drogon one last time and burn down the Red Keep, killing the Night King and ending the long night. Tyrion says, "You know that with the Night King's death, his entire army dies along. This is our best chance. This is our only chance." Dany says that the father of her children, their rightful king, is inside the Red Keep as well. Dany continues by saying that they must have faith in Jon Snow and believe that he will end the long night. Jorah says, "And what if you are wrong, your grace? What if the Night King is the one who wins inside the Red Keep? What then? Are you willing to risk lives of all of us, all your people, for Jon Snow?" Bran interrupts their conversation and says, "You can't kill Aegon Targaryen. You must not kill Jon Snow. He's the prince that was promised. Kill him and the war's lost." Tyrion insists that she must. Dany glances at the Red Keep and says, "I cannot do it." Jordan says Jon is not a Stark. He's a Targaryen, and you once told me that fire cannot kill a dragon. Varys interrupts Jorah by saying fire killed Aegon the Egg on the night Jon's father was born. Bran sides with Varys and says to Daenerys, "I saw you walking through fire, but Jon is not like you. He is not fire resistant. You're fire, but he's ice." Bran turns to Jorah and continues, "Jon's hand burned when he grabbed the fire lamp to kill a white and save your father, Sir Jorah." Tyrion then says to Dany, "Fire resistant or not, you know that Jon would want you to end it right there and right now," as he points to the Red Keep. "What is the death of one man compared to the deaths of hundreds of thousands?" Tyrion continues. Rhaegal still fights Viserion above the Red Keep. Jon Snow fights the Night King inside the Red Keep. Rhaegal's fire does no damage to Viserion. We see a shot of the Night King disarming and wounding Jon Snow. We then see a shot of Viserion's fire severely wounding Rhaegal. In the next shot, we see the Night King raising his ice blade, preparing to swing a final blow on Jon Snow. Then we see Rhaegal ripping Viserion apart, followed by a shot of Jon Snow pulling out a Valyrian steel dagger and stabbing the Night King through his heart. The shot then again switches to Rhaegal, keep ripping Viserion apart, but in the process, just before Viserion himself crumbles, Viserion breathes a massive torrent of blue fire on the Red Keep, burning down the Red Keep. Everyone is in shock. They lost their rightful King Aegon Targaryen. The army of the dead dies, the Night King has been killed. Everyone is in shock, especially Dany, Bran and Arya. Relieved that the war has been won, but they've lost many people, friends and families. They lost their king and hero Jon Snow. The next shot shows us Dany, Jorah, Tyrion, Grey Worm, Arya, Bran, Varys, Bronn, Edmure, Brienne, Gendry and Theon walking through the ruins of the Red Keep towards the Great Hall. After a few minutes screen time of a long walk, the group finally reaches the Great Hall. Dany is the first to enter it, followed closely by the others. The throne room is filled with snow, destroyed with its roof being completely gone, but Jon Snow is alive, sitting on the Iron Throne. Viserion's blue fire did not harm Jon. Everyone's surprised and in disbelief. So basically Jon ends the long night by him killing the Night King with a Valyrian steel dagger Arya gave him when she released him from Cersei's dungeons. But Jon surviving Viserion's blue fire might have been foreshadowed with a vision Bran had in the beginning of this episode. Bran had visions of past and future events, and first vision included Dany walking through the ruins of the Red Keep, entering the Great Hall and seeing the Iron Throne covered by snow. This would surely be either the same or the similar vision of the visions we had throughout the entire show. How has it foreshadowed Jon surviving and ending on the Iron Throne? Well, it particularly states, and we also see that the Iron Throne is covered by snow, Jon Snow. Back to the outline, the next scene takes place 6 years after. It's spring and we're at King's Landing. Jon sits on the Iron Throne and has a meeting with small folk. King's Landing faces growth and has finally rebuilt. After the meeting is over, Daenerys brings to Jon their twins who are now 6 years old. The boy is called Ned and the girl is called Rhaella. King Aegon and Queen Daenerys sit on the throne, but they do not rule the 7 kingdoms. They only rule the Crown Lands. We learn that they decided that every kingdom will have its own ruler shortly after the Great War ended. Let me stop right there to point out that surprisingly enough, this part of the outline has kind of been confirmed by Season 8 casting calls. It says that after the meeting is over, Daenerys brings to Jon their twins who are now 6 years old. A few months ago, there was a casting role for twins aged 5 to 8. The outline continues by stating the next stronghold we see is Storm's End. We see King Gendry and Queen Arya. They rule over the Stormlands and they have a 4-year-old daughter named Sansa. I also gotta stop right there to point out that this part has also kind of been confirmed by Season 8 leaks. It was revealed that Maisie Williams, an actress who portrays Arya Stark, filmed a scene with a 4-year-old child in Belfast. Now, keep in mind that this outline was sent to me in August last year, months before filming or casting even started. Back to the outline, it says that we are then at the Iron Islands that are ruled over by King Theon Greyjoy. We learn that Theon has an heir and a son who is around 12 years old. The mother is the captain's daughter Theon met aboard the Myreham. Here we learn that upon Euron and Yar's death, Theon became king of the Iron Islands, which doesn't come as a huge surprise. However, I'm sure most of you are wondering where is Theon's heir coming from and who is the captain's daughter and when did they meet on the ship? Well, believe it or not, we've all witnessed this in earlier seasons of the show. In the second episode of the second season, aboard the Myreham, a ship taking him to Pike on Robb Stark's orders, Theon paid visit to the captain's cabin which he has taken for his own. There he met the captain's daughter who awaits him in his bed, naked. After a bit of small talk, she helps Theon unlace his breeches, whereupon they had an intimate relationship that apparently resulted with a son. Even though the show itself hasn't provided any clue whether or not Theon's adventure with captain's daughter resulted with a child, in the books, Theon mentioned multiple times how confident he is that he got the captain's daughter pregnant. The outline then states that the next is Highgarden, which has now become a seat of a ruler of the Reach, King Samwell Tarly. We see Sam writing a book while little Sam is being trained by a master at arms. The north is ruled by King Bran Stark and Queen Meera. Bran and Meera's father are having a conversation in the Great Hall of Winterfell. It seems like we'll finally get to see Howland Reed, as the outline states he's having a conversation with Bran. Also pay attention on the part that says Sam writes a book. The outline continues by stating that we don't get to see the remaining 3 strongholds, out of which the 3 remaining kingdoms, the Westerlands, the Riverlands and Dorne, are ruled. But we get to know who rules these out of a conversation between Tyrion and Bronn. These 2 are riding somewhere in the Riverlands. We learn that Tyrion is King Tyrion now, ruling over the Westerlands from Casterly Rock. We also learn that the Riverlands are ruled by the Tullys. Bronn complains how he fought during the entire war against the dead, and still has no big castle of his own that's been promised to him. Tyrion gave him a minor castle somewhere in the Westerlands. Bronn says, "Your sister killed a woman, Tyene, that I could have married and rule over Dorne." Now Dorne is ruled over by Aelia Sen, Princess of Dorne, and continues with, "Your brother promised me a castle, gold and a highborn beauty for a wife, and he's died." And then they say that Lannisters always pay their debts. Tyrion responds with, "Not the dead ones." Bronn glances at Tyrion and shakes his head. Tyrion says, "What? I gave you a castle." "Hey, you gave me a castle. My chambers at King's Landing were bigger than this shithole." Bronn responds. Tyrion smiles. "You once told me whatever they promised me will pay me double." Bronn continues. Tyrion smiles again, glances at Bronn and points out the twins, the 2 breached castles. Tyrion says here not 1 but 2 castles. One can earn quite a bit of gold by charging passing travelers and merchants for the use of crossing, and there's Frey Bride awaiting for you as well. This caught Bronn off guard. For what I care, you can have that double too. Tyrion continues and finishes with, Lannister always pays debts. We also learn that the remaining dragons, Drogon and Rhaegal, died of wounds shortly after the battle for King's Landing. In the next shot, we are at Castle Black. We see Brienne, the new Lady Commander of the Night's Watch and the first female in the history to be a member and the commander of the Night's Watch. There, Brienne fills Jaime's entrance in the Book of Brothers with his great deeds. Brienne mentions Jaime saving the city of King's Landing and its population from the Mad King, Jaime being savior of Winterfell, and mentions his honorable death, dying while fulfilling his promise protecting a Stark child. Brienne finishes Jaime's entrance with the greatest knight to ever live. The last scene takes place 50 years after. The year is 361 AC. We see old Sam, played by George R. R. Martin, looking up from a book as he finally reads the whole story to little Sam's grandchildren. Game of Thrones ends with a child asking Sam the name of a story. Sam pauses, glances at distance, and says, "A Song of Ice and Fire." Has this ending been hinted or foreshadowed? Definitely, with the most prominent one being a scene in which Archmaester Rebros and Sam were gathering books in the Citadel Library. Their conversation gave us a strong hint for Sam truly being the narrator of Game of Thrones. Epic fantasy novels, A Song of Ice and Fire, which was later adapted into the HBO series Game of Thrones, most certainly does sound more poetic. This marks the biggest hint that Game of Thrones series might actually end with an old Sam looking up from a book as he finally reads the whole story, even though there are plenty more hints and clues going in favor to this theory, which I already broke down in my previous videos. George R. R. Martin was already supposed to play a role in Game of Thrones when he filmed a cameo appearance in an unaired pilot episode of Game of Thrones as a background Pentoshi merchant. Having in mind that he was already supposed to appear in the series, George R. R. Martin portraying old Sam in the last scene of Game of Thrones series most certainly doesn't seem to be out of the realm of possibilities. Additionally, during one interview, Martin said that if he was in the story, he'd probably be Samwell Tarly. He's a great character, George R. R. Martin said. Tyrion might be who I want to be, but Sam is probably closer to who I actually am. The fat kid who likes to read books and doesn't like to go up a lot of stairs. Long story short, it's been hinted and foreshadowed that the Game of Thrones would end up with an old Sam looking up from a book as he either finishes reading or writing all the events. However, do I like this ending? Me personally, not really, because if all of these were events written in Sam's book and we really believe in everything that's been told to us, are the Starks really the good ones and the Lannisters truly the villains of the story? What I want to say is that Sam's look on the events could be biased towards the Starks and Jon Snow, and therefore events might have not happened exactly as we've been told, which is why I'm not a big fan of this ending, but that's my opinion. This outlines so many major deaths, huge plot twists, Night King's intention being finally revealed and many epic battles. The magic is completely gone from the world with all the deaths of the direwolves and the dragons. What's bittersweet about it is that the living has won against both the Night King and Cersei, but with a great cost. The most of the living side has died, including some main characters such as Jaime and Sansa, and the ones who survived lost their friends and families. Now let me remind you that this outline might or might not be the actual outline of the final season. It's very well supported with leaked photos and other information regarding Season 8, especially because it was sent to me in August of last year, months before Season 8 started filming, which is the main reason I decided to share it with you. However, there's still a possibility that this outline could be fake, and all the matches between this outline